Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Tapaharini. We were discussing the Sutra number 18, 19 and 20. There were some clarifications to be made. So we will go back to the Sutra number 18, which says Virama Pratyaya Abhyasa Purva Sanskara Shesha Anyaha. Means there is another kind of concentration which is without any object. So we discussed the various types of objects with thoughts, without thought, with discrimination, without discrimination, savitarka, nirvitarka, and all those things we discussed in the previous sutras. But can there be a concentration which is without any object? There's no object at all. It's an objectless concentration in which the consciousness, the consciousness which is required to be, consciousness is something like a light. So if we take light and focus it on an object outside, we can perceive it. That is one type of concentration where we use our organs and focus on an object, external object or internal object. But if there is no object at all, if only if we try to focus on the consciousness itself, so concentration upon the consciousness, try to concentrate on the awareness, the consciousness which is enabling enabling us to perceive the objects around us. When we perceive the objects around us, there is an object, there is a subject, and there is a consciousness which is known as prajna, which is linking both. Without that consciousness, you cannot perceive an object. So virama pratyaya. Pratyaya means the perceived object. If there is virama, virama means there is no object at all. Abhyasa purva, by continuous checking the thought waves through the practice of non-attachment, not even allowing sanskara shesha anyaha. The sanskaras, which even if there is no object, you will find that even if we just close our eyes and try to focus on our consciousness, pure consciousness, still you will find some vrittis or waves appear, some unthought of object, some object from the from the past, or something which is uh, occupying us. We see that some object occupies us always, or so they keep popping up. The thoughts keep popping up. That is because there are certain seeds, the thoughts are in seed form. It is known as samskara shesha. So, but if they are burnt, if the seeds are burnt, then there is no sprouting. So then you can easily focus on the pure consciousness. Then no thoughts will pop up from our samskaras, the causal, I mean the chitta has these samskaras which has a tendency to sprout with or without any external activation. We don't need an external object to activate these samskaras. Even if we are totally unaware of any object, we close our eyes, we shut ourselves, all the organs are withdrawn. Even then, you will find that certain smriti, certain samskaras, they pop up certain thought waves. The thought waves, we have apparently no control over these thought waves. But those thought waves also can be suppressed or stopped only if the seeds are burnt. So they have been compared to small seeds. And these seeds are seeds which we have collected over a period of time, over several lives. So the importance of sanskara is considered here, I mean, is discussed here, that apparently though we have withdrawn ourselves, we don't have external impetus for us to raise any thoughts. We are in solitude, we are not in touch with any external object. Even then, the thoughts seem to sprout from somewhere. This sprouting is because our seeds are still there in the chitta, in the that part of the mind where our samskaras are stored. Samskaras are previous impressions. So they have a tendency to pop up when we least expect it. We are apparently very peaceful, very calm, and suddenly you find that a thought from nowhere just pops up without even consciously making any effort to think that particular thought. It pops up. So what is the reason? That is because the seeds are not yet burnt. So Dagda Bija Avastha, Dagda Bija means burning those seeds, is a process when you focus the fire of concentration on that. When you focus on the concentration itself, then these seeds burn. It is attained, this can be attained, Abhyasa Purvaha, means if you constantly check the thought waves, if it is done continuously, and then you focus on the consciousness itself, and also practice non-attachment. So non-attachment is very important. So just abhyasa practice is not enough. You should not be, because attachment brings further, creates further seeds in the mind, in the chitta. So on one side you are destroying the seeds, on the other side you are importing or gathering fresh seeds. So burnt seeds will not disturb you, but new seeds will disturb you. That is why they speak so much of non-attachment in spiritual sadhana. So attachment, any kind of attachment, good or bad, has a tendency to produce these seeds, produce these thought waves. So the process of sprouting of these thought waves from these seeds has to be stopped altogether by non-attachment. That is the idea. So the idea here is the spiritual aspirant can aspire to have the highest degree of concentration, samadhi, upon a single object. That is one thing. But objectless meditation, where the state of perfect yoga, which passes beyond Prakriti, because there is no object. If there is Prakriti, then there will be an object, subtle or gross. We will be meditating on something, whether it is with knowledge of that object or without knowledge, savitarka, with nirvitarka, savichara, nirvichara. We studied all those classifications. But still Prakriti is involved. But if we transcend the Prakriti beyond all objective knowledge, and if we are uniting, if you focus on the undifferentiated universal consciousness, whom we call the Ishta, when we meditate on the Ishta within our heart, we are supposed to imagine that it is pure Satchidananda, the object, though there is an object, the object or the form of the Ishta is just the window through which you peep into this universal consciousness. So you should think, he is Chid Ghana Kai. Chid Ghana Kai in Belur, in our Belur Mat and all, they sing this Arti Khandana Bhav Bandhana. So one of the adjectives of Sri Ramakrishna, he is Chit Ghana Kai. His body is there, but it is an apparent body. What is that body made of? It is made of pure consciousness. But then how can pure consciousness have a form? So that is why they say the impossible happens when the incarnation assumes a body for the sake of meditation. So meditating on Sri Ramakrishna, contemplating on Sri Ramakrishna, you are actually meditating on the pure consciousness. Ultimately, it will lead to pure consciousness. As I told you, repeated many times, it may be compared to a doorway, the door through which you enter the vast space beyond that door. But the door gives you a semblance of a form. So that form is our Ishta. That is the reason why we have to meditate on anything as supreme consciousness, as Sat Chit Ananda. Chit means pure consciousness, pure existence, and pure bliss. If that is the nature of our Ishta, then you can meditate on any Ishta or any God. So that undifferentiated universal consciousness is what the yogi tries to attain. And this state of perfect yoga, that is only possible in the state of perfect yoga, whether you do bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, or even raj yoga. The mind has to be, thought waves have to be stilled. Virama pratyaya, the thought waves have to be stilled. And the mind, after just stilling the thought waves, doesn't ensure that you will have this kind of concentration, because the seeds are there. So Not only the waves have to be stilled, but the mind has to be cleared of all its samskaras. So all the subtle samskaras also, both evil and good, when they are destroyed, then Patanjali says that he is none other than the person who meditates like that is none other than the Atman, because only the Atman is the is in his awareness. The pure consciousness alone remains dominant in his consciousness. So the consciousness is focused upon the pure consciousness. Our limited consciousness with all the ego and all those things, once it is sucked or focused upon the pure consciousness, you reach the highest state of yoga. So yoga philosophy says that it is the samskaras which drive us from birth to birth. From one birth to another birth, when a person dies, when the sthula sharira goes away, the prana goes away, then what is remaining? Only this seed form. It is the samskaras again and again. It inclines a person to be born again to, it's like some addiction, as I told you. If a man takes a drug, he again, in spite of his conscious efforts not to take it, something within unconsciously prompts him to take the drug again. So against his moral will, against the efforts of his own moral will, this, even though there is a conscious disinclination to take the drug, or some if one has the habit of drinking uh, liquor and other things which become deep samskaras, or smoking. So this conscious disinclination, somebody tells you smoking is bad, drinking is bad, taking drugs is bad, but still the person sometimes is forced to act against the moral will. So you may say, if there is a conscious disinclination, he has promised that he will not touch these things because they are harming him, but still he takes it. Why? It is because this deep rooted addiction is like those samskaras. The seeds are not yet destroyed. The seeds of drinking, the seeds of smoking, the seeds of taking drugs, they are in some dormant potential form. And until they are destroyed, to enjoy those samskaras, to or suffer those samskaras, it's not always enjoyment. Though apparently they think it is enjoyment. When you take the drug, perhaps they feel it is an ecstasy. But when the effects come, so we have to have both the evil and the evil effects of also you have to be prepared for. Nothing is given free. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. So every karma has a contrary effect. So if we sincerely believe that with all the pleasures and the pains of this world, the sweet and bitter fruits, as it is compared in the Upanishads, if we are wary, if we just want to get rid of the samskaras, then only our desire to uh, become one with the consciousness will deepen. Otherwise, we will come back into this sense experience again and again. Whatever little samskaras are remaining, either at the time of death, when one gives up the physical body, those will force you to assume another body to enjoy those old experiences which are yet to be destroyed. So in seed form, Sri Ramakrishna used to give that example that the old woman, after the crop is cut, she preserves some seeds in her pot, which she can use for growing the vegetables again. She doesn't destroy the seeds. The seeds are there in the pot. So also, when you die, we carry all these seeds with us, and they, as soon as they get the proper ground, the proper water, the proper nutrients, they will start sprouting. And then the whole tree, the tree of karma, you can say, with all the fruits and the flowers, they will all grow, and there's no way to stop it. Then again, there will be seeds, they will fall, then another tree will come up. So our karma tree will grow. So one has to be very careful to see that the seeds, the leftover seeds, samskara shesha anya. So that means samskaras have to be destroyed. So our desire to return and plunge once more into this sense experience of Prakriti is far deeper than we understand. We may think, oh, we have been done, especially when one grows old, when one has finished all the sense pleasures. enjoyed it to the maximum, and then one is suffering from disease, and a sort of world weariness comes in every person. They start contemplating. That's why they tell young people, okay, you can think of spirituality when you grow old. Unfortunately, that is the advice we give to the young children. So now your senses are sharp, you have, and you can, so why not enjoy? Why? What is the need of self control and all these things? But they don't realize that as we get old, the senses may get weak. We may not be able to enjoy the food that we used to enjoy as young people. We may not able to enjoy the other things which we have enjoyed as youth in old age. So a certain kind of world weariness use comes. For example, somebody was telling Sri Ramakrishna that he is not performing Durga Puja in the idol anymore. There was a very old man who was very well known. So somebody came and told Sri Ramakrishna, nowadays he doesn't perform Durga Puja in the same way he used to do when he was young. He used to invite so many people, and they used to normally eat lot of meat, goat and other things, offer it, and then prepare nice delicious dishes. So the Durga Puja has become very simple. He doesn't conduct this Durga Puja anymore because the feasts and other things have become less. So Sri Ramakrishna laughed and smiled and said that is because his teeth have all fallen. He has become old. He knows now he can't enjoy the dishes, the meat dishes which he used to enjoy as a youth. So a kind of vairagya has come, and he says, now I don't feel like doing all these things, because his capacity to enjoy the world has ended. So that is not the goal, because here Patanjali says the capacity might have ended, but the samskara shesha has not happened. The old samskaras which you have not controlled through abhyasa and vairagya, through non-attachment, if some samskaras of the youth are still there, that is why there is that famous story of Yayati and his father. So Yayati's father was a king, so he performed certain sacrifices. He wanted to become young again. He said, I is not enough, enjoyed the world enough, so he wanted to become young. But then his son said, why are you doing all these things? He says, see, there are two ways to do it. One is I have to do this elaborate ritual, and perhaps as a result of that, as the fruit of that ritual is that I'll become young and I can enjoy for a few years more. Then the son asked, he was a very unselfish person, he loved his father very much. He said, what is the other option? He said, the other option is a youth can, I can exchange my old age with somebody's youth. So if he agrees voluntarily. So the son said, if you really are keen, because I don't anyway feel, he was a very spiritual person. So he told his father, who uh, wanted to wanted an extension, further extension in his youthful the enjoyments he enjoyed in the youth because of the samskaras. But fortunately, the son had no such samskaras. Even when he was a young person, he was very thoughtful, very spiritual, and he did not want any. So he said, I can easily exchange. I have these sense organs, but I have no use for them. So if by any ritual we can exchange the youth, I give my youth. I'm happy to be without all these enjoyments. I'm perfectly happy meditating and following my spiritual pursuits. So he gives his youth to his father. So his father enjoys another life. He enjoys all the sense pleasures which his son would have enjoyed. But even that comes to an end. So after 100 years, at a very ripe old age, again he starts aging. Now there is nobody to exchange his youth with his father. Then he writes that Vairagya Shatakam. So at that time, that Vairagya Shatakam, in that he says, I thought that by giving an extension to my senses, I can extend my joy, extend my pleasures. But I found it is as futile as trying to douse a fire with the help of ghee. Ghee means butter and oil. So if you take ghee, that is clarified butter, If you take clarified butter and pour it into in the havans and the homas and the yagnas, they use this clarified butter, which is known as ghee. So if you pour that, the fire starts blazing. But if unlike if you want to douse that fire of desire, so Yayati at the end of his life, after his extended life, where he enjoyed for the second time all the youthful pleasures which his son had sacrificed for his father, and because he was more concerned about spiritual welfare, he didn't give any value to all this stupid enjoyment which his father wanted. So he said, okay, if you are so keen, and since I am your son, okay, you take all these things. But I can assure you that they are not going to last long. Even that will have an end. So at the end, he realizes, after having taken a fresh lease of youthfulness and enjoyed that to the utmost, then at the end of the second innings, you may say, he became old, then he enjoyed by virtue of his son sacrificing for his sake. And finally, when that also came to an end, he realized, what am I doing? I'm searching for another person who can share. It's of course a story, but still it gives, it's very significant. Then he writes, that is the essence of Vairagya Shatakam, which he wrote. He says, oh, I later on found that I was trying to douse a fire. It is like that fire of desire which was burning the soul of that person, the king. He was trying to douse that fire by more enjoyment, and then he has compared it to adding clarified butter into that fire. That fire of desire becomes more. He didn't realize, as he went on pouring the clarified butter, the fire became more and more. So instead of dousing the fire, it increases the desire to enjoy more. So he found that as long as the subconscious tendencies, the samskara shesha doesn't, the samskaras are not burnt, till then the tendencies remain, and no matter how much peaceful and calm we are, suddenly from nowhere these seeds will start sprouting, and then they go beyond our control. So our desire to return more, plunge into more sense experience, is far deeper than we often realize. And it's because of our spiritual hangovers, sometimes physical and spiritual hangovers, fits of disgust come, and repentance. Even they are not enough. No doubt some people, Sri Ramakrishna used to give some wonderful examples. So the pain of childbirth is so painful that the mother says, okay, one child is enough. I don't want to undergo the pain of childbirth again. One child is enough. So, but after some time, slowly, the samskaras are such that it forgets, the soul forgets that it was so painful to give birth. And then again, Thakur says in his very funny way, the mother will go on having children year after year. And every time she'll say, oh, this is the last time, I will not have more children. So Thakur used to give some very, very uh, powerful examples to tell the people that the desires are like that. The more we try to satiate it, the more it's like pouring more and more clarified butter into the fire. It will increase the intensity of the fire rather than dousing that fire. Water can douse it. The water of Vairagya can douse it. But instead of water, if you pour butter, clarified butter, then it will increase. So even Shakespeare, in one of his very powerful sonnets, he mentioned this. We think of this idea of samskaras are there only in our Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. They also believe that past reason and all these things make a person mad. The past experiences, though it is not very clear from this sonnet that this aversion and attraction which he saw in human nature, how they had a powerful influence. Though he may not consider the influences or the attachments and attractions and aversions of the previous life, but at least in this life of childhood and of the youth, he explains that they come to haunt us when we become old. So he says the recurring process of attraction and aversion in a beautiful sonnet which Shakespeare wrote. He says, enjoyed no sooner but despised straight. Enjoyed no sooner but despised straight. We have enjoyed it, but we have immediately despised it. Past reason hunted, and no sooner had past reason hated as a swallowed bait on purpose laid to make the taker mad. So, if you see the past, whatever reasons you give, the attraction which you felt in the past made you enjoy that, and then an aversion came. You despised it. You try to find out the reason why I'm hating it. Because excess of any enjoyment gives rise to some kind of distaste. But temporary distaste or temporary uh, aversion to those things, they will not last long. That is a warning Patanjali is giving, that you may have an aversion. The mother of the child says that, oh, if it is so painful, then let me stop with one child. I don't want to bear the pain of carrying the child in the womb for 9 months and then giving birth. But Sri Ramakrishna says again and again, there is a tendency for the human mind, the samskaras will come back to the fore. Once that pain is over, there is this forgetfulness of the pain. So, according to Shakespeare, this sonnet explains very clearly that on purpose laid to make the taker mad. In the sense, there is a purpose in this nature which makes the person madly chase these things, though for a moment he thinks I should avoid this. It will say, the soul will say that please avoid this, but then suddenly it will feel like uh, enjoying those things. So it follows, therefore, if we see Patanjali's sutra, this sutra, that when samskaras have been rooted out and destroyed, we think we have rooted it out, but some remnants remain, as they must be. If the state of perfect yoga is reached, they are perfectly burnt. But if it is not there, before the state of perfect yoga, the lower realizations of yoga will still urge a soul towards rebirth. So to enjoy the samskaras, when the body becomes old, it has to naturally take up a younger body. And for that, he has to undergo the whole process of rebirth, stay in the mother's womb in that dark imprisonment for about 9 months, wait for it to get a body, and finally be born again. So after being birthed, we forget it. But the samskaras of pain is what is expressed when the child is born. Normally, when the child is born, it won't laugh because it cries. One of the reasons given is it cries because at that moment it thinks that, oh, I have come to this painful world again. There was no choice for that child. It had to come back. That is why the Bhagavata is a beautiful story where in the biography of Shukadeva refused to come out of the mother's womb. He said, no, I just don't want to be born. He had so much of vairagya and so much of aversion towards gross things that he refused. And then because he was requested and he had to do some divine play and for the good of the world, he agreed to be born. Otherwise, he said, why should I be born? I have no desire, I have no samskaras. He was a perfect yogi. So he was not very much willing to be born. So unless one becomes a perfect yogi, he cannot be liberated. When his present life ends of a perfect yogi, he will be united with the pure consciousness or Atman. However, this particular achievement or this state of yoga is very, very difficult to attain because that doesn't happen till the samskaras or the seeds are totally burnt. Not a single seed is there to sprout. So Many saints, or they say Jivan Muktas, there is a word known as Jivan Muktas, liberated while living. They apparently are living and performing all the actions like these avatars. They are like Swami Vivekananda and others who apparently, but they were not bound. They reached the supreme experience and then continued to live for many years. They have continued to think, to speak, to act in this mundane world, in Prakriti. And but there is a huge difference. The thoughts and words and actions of that man are said to be like the burnt seeds. The seeds are burnt. So he is giving expression not because he is forced to. He will speak, whatever he speaks will be for the good of mankind. Whatever he does will be for the good of mankind. So they are no longer, the seeds are no longer fertile. They will not give rise to further samskaras, or he will not be forced to be born. He will be born only for doing good to the world. So they will not create any further bondage like ordinary men. Ordinary jiva, if he does all these actions, thinks, speaks, and acts without this vairagya or without a spiritual direction, then he will be forced, he will be creating additional bondage, and then he'll be forced to be born. So in Sanskrit, there is a word which is known as karma. Karma is not just action. Many people think that, oh, karma yoga is very easy. I am very active. I will do karma yoga. But what is karma? This is to be understood. Karma is not just action. Any action is not karma. Otherwise, these insects, everybody is doing a little bit of karma in their own way. But when does a work or an action become an karma? So, in Sanskrit, this word karma has a specific connotation. It says a man, a mental or a physical act can be called a karma, and as the consequence of that act is what we call fate. We say it is our fate. These things have happened. Because when we can't explain anything, we'll say it is our fate, it is our destiny. You see, many people use these words so loosely that we think it is all our destiny. Why does this happen? Why it doesn't happen? But it happens for a reason. There is a reason behind everything. Just because we can't see beyond the present, we think, we just call it, it is karma. Oh, it is my karma. In India, it is used in a very negative way, in the sense, oh, it is my karma. If anything happens, they try to console themselves, saying, it is my karma. What can I do? It is my fate. But we don't realize that fate can be changed. Fate is nothing but the sum of the consequences of our past actions in this and our previous lives. So we are responsible for all the things which are happening now, which we call as fate, or we say it is my karma. But there is no reason why we should be always depending on this fate. We can take this fate into our own hands. So there is a beautiful Amba Stotra dedicated to the Divine Mother, where Swami Vivekananda beautifully says, the rope of my karma is in your hands. O Divine Mother, please see that bondage. You have bound me with the karma, now you release me. So the consequences of our past actions in this and our previous lives, if one practices yoga, the goal of yoga is to burn this seeds which result in producing karma. So that is the definition of karma, the capacity or the potential to sprout. If samskaras are not there, then the action which one is doing, a jivan mukta is doing, a free person is doing, it is without any bondage. So that is why Sri Krishna tells in the 3rd and 4th chapter, he elaborately explains, he says, I have no duty in this world, but still I am working. He's not working because he is forced to. We work because we are forced to. We have certain desires, we have certain likes, dislikes, we have certain aversions. So the samskaras are making us work. We are like puppets in the hand of karma. Whereas they are the one he is the karma dhyaksha, the Ishvara, or or God is the karma dhyaksha. He's the creator, the preserver and destroyer, because he is not bound by prakriti as we are. So it is like that avatars can be compared Like an actor on the last night of a play, the actor is going to retire, so he just plays his part and then he will no longer act. He doesn't have to come back and act again. So he knows that that play will never be performed again. And no matter how well he does his part, even if he does a wonderful acting, he knows that this is his last show and he's not going to act. Something similar to this. Then, whether the audience boos or applauds him, he knows anyway tomorrow, if there is that tension of whether I will be accepted, then he will be very cautious. That is what happens when we play. We are so cautious. We are like acting in this play. But because of our attachment, because of our keenness, because of our karma, the bondage which we have, we think we have to play properly, otherwise tomorrow we will not get this role. But the actor who knows this is his last play is least bothered. He will do his best and leave everything to destiny, to fate. He doesn't bother about fate. So that is the difference between the karma of a bound soul and the karma of a free soul. So free soul also will do, the Jivan Mukta also will act, but he will act with lot of freedom. And there's a lot of joy in that. He just acts as if he's an actor and he doesn't bother whether the audience is happy or not. He has nothing to gain or lose by his action or his performance. So nevertheless, he has to act. He cannot give up the play till the final curtain falls. So he may be appear to be disinterested, but he's taking full interest. But he is not unnecessarily weighed down by the consequences of his acting, because he knows this is my last play. So also the Jivan Muktas, they know this is my last birth. There are many saints who believe that this is the last birth. By the grace of God, they understand, and then they decide that let us not get involved too much. That is how Vairagya comes to such people. That is a sign that one has disassociated himself from the attachments. Like the actor who is making his last appearance. He gives his best, but he doesn't bother. And he is not very keen to see what is the reaction of the crowd, because he doesn't believe, he believes that he is not going to anyway do the play again. So whether a person appreciates it or criticizes it, it's the same for him. So he's just waiting to finish his play. So that is exactly what a Jivan Mukta or a perfect yogi's life is in this world. The difference between a yogi who does karma and a person who is bound and doing karma is vast. Though they may be performing the same actions, there is a huge difference. So Shankaracharya tells us such actions are performed by these people as it were from previous memory. If there are no samskaras, how will you work? So they say the memory samskaras are still there. So they are like the remembered actions of a dream. In dream, there are no real motivations for us to act, but still we act. Where does that action in the dream come? It comes from the remembered actions of the past. So smriti. So smriti, even after the samskaras, or some smritis remain, and that smriti makes him act. That is why Sri Krishna is telling, I know all my past, present, and future. I know all my lives of the past, Arjuna, but you don't know. And that is why you are sad. I know my past. I know my whole past, because they are all remembered actions. They are smritis. He has no reason to be born. He is a free person. He has become one with the Atman. So the whole Gita was a message delivered by Sri Krishna when he was one with the Supreme Soul. He had no duty, he had no sense of attachment, he had no bondage, he was free. And that is why the message is powerful, because it was eternal. It is eternal. It's not, time will not diminish the value of that wonderful message. So they are like, but his actions, somehow you have to explain the actions of Krishna. Why, if he was so much detached, why did he take part in the war? Why did he agree to become the charioteer of Arjuna? All these things happened because he was least bothered. He remembered all his actions just as if from memory. So people who have achieved liberation, of course, for an incarnation, they don't have even, they are free from any type of samskaras right from birth. But even the Jivan Muktas, the Nitya Muktas, who ever free people who come with these incarnations, who are not born because they had to perform, they are born because there is a divine purpose to lift mankind from this bondage. They come. So they are like remembered actions of a dream, the old actions of the dream which we have. And when we wake up, we just don't give importance to that because they are just remembered actions. So that is the meaning of the verse, the 18th verse. Now we come to the 19th, which we had read, but we'll discuss it again. Bhava pratyayo videha prakriti layanam. When such concentration comes, the highest concentration, focusing on the consciousness, and is accompanied by intense vairagya or non-attachment, and ignorance therefore remains, the aspirant will reach the state of disincarnate gods or become merged in the forces of nature. So beyond this, there will discuss about a still higher meditation. Here, he concentrate without non-attachment. If there is uh, concentration, but there is no non-attachment, no vairagya, the supreme vairagya, if it is not there, then it cannot bring you liberation. It is just one step beyond the ultimate. So in the 18th verse, we talked about the supreme liberation, but in case we have this objectless meditation, but at the same time we have not burned the seeds, extreme non-attachment is not there, then what happens? Then he will become Prakriti Laya. Now we have to understand what this Prakriti Layana. Videha means once they lose their body, the aspirant will reach a state where he will become a part of nature and become one of the powerful forces. So we have these different gods, Agni Devata, Vayu Devata. We just try to classify the different forces of nature by calling them various deities. We say Indra is the god of action, the karma is motivated by Indra. So they are like cosmic beings who have become Prakriti Laya. That is the interpretation yoga gives. When there is not, if there is total non-attachment, one becomes liberated. Then the samskaras, but if the little samskaras in the form of memory remain, there the aspirant will reach the state of disincarnate gods. They are not incarnate gods like the avtaras, but they are disincarnate gods who have taken up the role, a bigger role than ordinary human beings of influencing the nature around us. They are known as Prakriti Laya. Laya means to merge. So Videha, once they lose the body, they don't become free. Neither are they born again, but they become Prakriti Laya. So what will happen? Let us see. So, however hard we may struggle, we can only be rewarded according to our desires. That is very clear. We saw it. If our desires, if we really want liberation, we have to give up desires. But suppose there are some desires lurking, what will happen? If we really want power and pleasure, we can get them. That is why the yoga says it does not discount the fact that one can get access to the power. Suppose as a human being, you had a desire for infinite knowledge, you become the god of knowledge, the Prakriti, you become one with Prakriti, you become an exceptionally intelligent person or a very highly respected person. So whatever power and pleasure, what seed of power and pleasure was there, but you have at the same time done abhyasa, but you don't have the vairagya, the supreme non-attachment, then we will get them and enjoy them as Prakriti Layas. If it is at of a very high level, then we become Prakriti Layas, which are deification, or you may say disincarnate gods and goddesses. That is why we say that in Hinduism there are so many gods and goddesses. The goddess of wealth, there are different goddesses of forces of nature. We call the goddess of fire, the god of fire, the goddess of, there are so many, Indra is given some designation. So these are the various powers, subtle powers which are lurking in the universe. And people from time immemorial, people have who wanted these pleasures, they have appeased these gods and got what they wanted. So if you have a love for knowledge, you will appease the god of knowledge, and the god of knowledge will give you that kind of power or position which you really deserve. You may not get the highest, but you will get according to the efforts you have put, you will get those. So even that requires a lower kind of yoga. So everybody is a yogi. They are lesser or bigger yogis, higher yogis, but depending on what desires they have. If they have desire for power, and they will get them instead, not only in this world, in this human form. In this human form, they will become powerful, but even after death, the other worlds, the subtle worlds, also they will influence or wield a lot of power. So these are what, when you talk of these deities, they are nothing but very, very great beings who have enjoyed the gross, and after giving up the gross, they are so powerful that they will enjoy the subtle world. So concentration upon any gross element or sense organs is said to bring us the condition of Prakriti Laya, or these disincarnate gods. Concentration upon the mind or ego is said to make us one with the forces of nature and rulers of parts of the universe. Certain sections of the universe we can perhaps influence. So when we talk of this heaven and hell, these are the subtle worlds where the powers which we have gained and the efforts which we have made will help us to live a life in heaven. So we will not use it in a Semitic sense, in a Christian sense, or in the sense Islam uses it. That is heaven and hell. For a Hindu, heaven is nothing but becoming a sort of uh, subtle, becoming one with the subtle existences in Prakriti itself. So heaven and hell are not given so much of importance in Hinduism, because going to heaven is becoming one with the positive forces of Prakriti and enjoying it. And hell means negative forces and suffering it. So the Vedanta believes, or the Hindu believes, that there are many planes of existences, the gross, the subtle, the causal, where the planes where the departed soul will live for some time, depending on the karma, impelled by the karma which we have accumulated on this earth. We will get the rewards there for some time. You may call it heaven or you may call it hell, Swarga and Naraka, as they call it in Hinduism. But we shall not remain there eternally. That is one thing which our scriptures make very clear. Unless there is no such thing as eternal hell or eternal damnation or eternal heaven. So where you will just be enjoying the heaven. There is a time after which the Prakriti layas have to come down. But we shall never remain in them eternally, in any one of them, either hell or heaven, or the subtle worlds. Hell or heaven has been defined as the subtle worlds, where we enjoy through the mind and the subtle senses, but there are no physical objects there. So when the good or bad karma which we have done in the subtle, with our destiny will take us to the subtle worlds, and when it ends, we have to come back to this world to either gain more karma, more punya, more merit or demerit, and then again go back to these vicious cycles of heaven and hell. So they are just extension of this world, extensions of Prakriti. It is like graduating from the gross to the subtle, nothing special about it. They are equally strong to bind. So the only condition according to Hindu belief is that we are free to make the act of yoga in between when we have the body. That is why they say human body is so precious, and our incarnations and the prophets urge us, the yogis, they urge us not to waste this human body, because here we have a chance. Once we leave the body, we have to come back again, get another body to carry, to create karma. There we will enjoy the fruits of the karma, and maybe to unite with the Atman, you have to be born again. That is why they say three things are very rare. Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam, Mahapurusha Sanshraya. That means three things are very rare. Shankaracharya says, don't waste this life, because Manushyatvam is so rare. It's even better than to enjoy the life of these deities, either in heaven or hell, because they are all temporary things and it will take a long time. And if you are fortunate enough to be born, then Manushatvam you will get, so that you can work out your karma fast and get liberated. Mumukshutvam, the desire for liberation also should be there. It's not enough if we are just born and born to create more karma, then it will be more bondage. So every time Manushatva may not be good. To get a human body may not be good every time, but for some people, if Mumukshatvam is also there, then he can make full use of that. And then Mahapurusha Sanshraya, if he comes by chance because of his fate or because of his good karma, he might come in touch with a great soul or some great idea or some scripture which will show him the way out of this karma. So first he has to be born physically, Manushatvam, Mumukshutvam, and after having been born, somehow develop that desire to be free. But even then it is not enough, because he requires some guidance to push him to freedom. One can't get freedom from Prakriti so easily. So one has to pray to Prakriti. When you pray, Prakriti herself arranges for a person who will not bind you but take you out of bondage. He influences Prakriti to take you out of bondage. So the role of Prakriti is like a good mother who gives you all the experiences of heaven, hell, subtle, everything. And at the end of the journey, finally says, when just like that actor who says, my acting is over and I will quit. So he quits with so much of detachment. So the Prakriti says, don't get attached further. Otherwise, you will get bound into this vicious circle of Swarga, Naraka, human birth. And so it is not a very pleasant. So that inclination comes if you have Mumukshutvam and Mahapurusha Sanshraya. You have the company of a great soul. You have the company of previous great people who have shown the way and out of this mess of this world. So the desire for heaven or hell, nobody desires hell, but heaven is also temporary, and all Hindu religious literature says. So that they clearly make a distinction between two. So Krishna is scolding Arjuna for his preoccupation with the problems of this phenomenal world. So he speaks of a man who just hopes for heaven. So he says, I should do this, I should do that, this yagna, that yagna, I should donate in charity. So one day I'll go to heaven. So Emerson also wrote a beautiful poem. He was perhaps, I think, influenced by Vedanta, because he wrote a poem which is known as Brahma. I'll just quote this and then we'll take the discussion to the next class. The poem goes like this: the strong gods pine for my abode, and pine in vain the sacred seven. But thou, meek lover of the good, find me and turn thy back on heaven. So you see, Emerson, who was influenced by Vedanta, he wrote this poem, Brahma, in which he says, the strong gods, means those who are Prakriti Layas, they pine for my abode, means they want some benefit. Even after death, they want to enjoy the power and position. And pine in vain the sacred seven, the Saptarishis, the sacred seven. Even they are pining for something big. But the meek lover of the good, that is a very simple human being with faith in the scriptures, faith in the Guru, faith in God, faith in mokshutva, that is the desire for freedom. Find me means find the Atman, the soul, and find the Brahman and turn thy back on heaven. So it requires great strength not to get caught in the struggle for power and position, in the subtle power and position which we aspire to go after death. So we will now see if there are some questions and continue the discussion the next. Yeah, there are a lot of questions. So somebody is asking me about both the doses of vaccines. No, I have not received. I'll be receiving the second vaccine on 22nd of May. So that is one question. Another question is, Pranam Maharaj, what is the role of purity in burning the seeds of samskara? What is its importance for developing spiritual consciousness? What do you mean by purity? I have repeated this many times, that we should make our idea very clear about what purity means and what impurity means. The clearest or the simplest definition of purity is, the grosser you are, the more impure you are. The more subtle you go, you leave the Annamaya Kosha. Your attachment to the gross will determine the account of the amount of purity you have. It is like carat gold. You put some inferior metal in that, the purity of the gold becomes less and less. But if you go on heating it, if you go on doing tapasya, abhyasa, and vairagya, the more you do, the more finer the gold becomes, and the impurities are all burnt away. So when the samskaras are burnt, you become more pure and you become more subtle. So the more subtle you become, the more pure you become. So the importance of purity in burning of samskaras is this: the purer you are, the quicker the samskaras are burnt. The example I told you, refined gold. If you put an alloy in that, the gold becomes inferior. It fetches less value. People know 24 karat gold, and the purest gold is the costliest. So the more you heat and remove all the impurities by certain chemical reactions, similarly in our samskaras, the more we burn it, the lesser the samskaras, the more pure you are. So it is a very important for developing spiritual consciousness. What is the role of Guru and Ishta if we die but have samskaras? So that lead us to a new reborn. Yes, the role of Guru and Ishta, as I said you, Manushatva, Mumukshotva, Mahapurusha Sanshraya. Now, that desire for liberation, if with that desire, if you approach a Guru, and if the Guru given mantra is repeated, that is what the tradition says. So the role of Guru is to connect you with the Ishta. But then no matter how much he tries, if one does not have that basic desire to be free, mumukshutva, then Mahapurusha Sanshraya will not help. So it requires tremendous effort from both the guru and disciple. So that is why that famous mantra is there: Sahana vavatu, Sahana bhunaktu, Sahaviryam karavavahe, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. So it is not one-sided. It's not just the guru or the disciple. Both have to put their efforts together. So the role of guru is not just he simply won't catch you and take you to the other shore. You have to participate in that. That's why the guru makes it very clear at the beginning of the study. Sahana Vavutu, let us both study together. Let us experience all the sadhana and everything together. Let us become strong together. Sahaviryam. Tejasvinavadhi, let our study of the scriptures, let the study of the spiritual things which we are doing together. It's not that the guru says something and the disciple understands. No, he is a co-learner, you can say. So that idea of co-learning is very important. One has to give importance and practice and experience these things themselves. So if the role of guru is to take the disciple to the Ishta, but he has to also walk. He can't just pull the disciple, but the role of guru is to make you understand the nature of the Ishta and take you to the Ishta. Means what? You go there and you become one with the Ishta and get rid of all the sufferings. So that is, even if you have samskaras, to go against the samskaras, you require some kind of motivation or inspiration which the guru attempts to give you. But how much inspiration one takes or how much inspiration the guru is able to give, that depends on how much of co-learning or how much of sahana vavatu is there, how much of faith in the guru, how much of conviction in the guru is there. So it depends not only on the guru but also on the disciple. So, but there is no guarantee that one will not be reborn, because that depends on how much faith we have. Now, yeah, they won't stay with us. The samskaras, whatever samskaras have been destroyed, there's no question of staying with us. The others will stay with us and one will be born again. So this rebirth is only because of unburned samskaras. So the guru given mantra, the role of guru is to Give the mantra which every repetition of which destroys one samskara. That's what they say. It removes sorrow means what? It removes ignorance. The more you do, the more you uh, try to unify yourselves with the Atman. So the Sachidananda Brahman who is your Ishta. So the nearer you go to the Ishta through the repetition of mantra and the sadhana and meditation, the more uh, effort the disciple does, and the more the guru inspires the disciple to do, the closer he will be, and the more samskaras will be destroyed. So they will not stay with you. Some will stay, might stay with you. Whatever is not burnt will stay with you. What is the difference between Jivan Mukta and Avtara? No, it's a huge difference. Jivan Mukta has, by the grace of the Avtara, Avtara has not never been bound by karma. He's always independent. He is not even Prakriti Laya. He's more than the deities. So Avatara, when he comes, he demonstrates certain special qualities that he is not bound, he is ever free. So Jivan Mukta is one who gets mukti in this life. So there are some Jivan Muktas like Swami Shivanandi, Swami Mahapurush Maharaj. So he says by the grace of Thakur. Now we don't understand what is the significance of that, but he said by Thakur's grace he has made me a Jivan Mukta, he has made me a Parshad. Sri Ramakrishna originally said there are four people who have come with him. Of course, Narendra was the fifth, but there were four others who were Ishwar Kotis, who were Jivan Muktas by birth. Yogananda, Premananda, and Brahmananda, and Purna Chandra Ghosh. So he knew by seeing them that they have come just to assist him in the Leela. And Swami Vivekananda, of course, and Holy Mother, there's no question, she was part and parcel of Sri Ramakrishna. So they are all, you may say, Avatara Purushas with the inner circle of, they are not born like, but others, Jivan Muktas, were the other disciples who got Jivan Mukti, not only got Jivan Mukti, but in the next cycle, perhaps in the next incarnation, they will be born as the Ishwar Kotis. So the Ishwar Kotis who came with the previous incarnation with Buddha. So Sri Ramakrishna used to point out, he had come before with Christ, he had come before with Buddha, he had come before with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he could identify some Jivan Muktas and some Ishwar Kotis who come with the Avatara. Now, don't expect any result, good or bad. Just carry on with the work. That is the message of Sri Krishna. Is it so, Maharaj? Can this attitude be obtained without yoga meditation? It can be obtained without yoga, or meditation is one path. It is known as Raj Yoga. But even Karma Yoga involves some kind of meditation or concentration. So it depends on what you define as yoga. With yoga is not something which is, yoga is there in all the four paths. Karma Yoga also is a yoga. Bhakti Yoga is also a yoga. Yoga means union. So without yoga, it is not possible. How can you realize the Atman? If you want without expecting a result, that is Karma Yoga which you are speaking of. If that's not the only message of the Gita, one of the messages, of course, is acting without detachment. So Tyaga is the message of Gita. As Sri Ramakrishna said, the essence of Gita is Tyaga, no doubt. But not expecting any result, good or bad, just carry on with the work in a mechanical way is not the yoga. It is not Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga presupposes that you have some basic knowledge, you have jnana, you have bhakti, you have a little bit of meditation or concentration. Otherwise, you won't be able to perform Karma Yoga. Okay? Yeah. I seem to go through periods of time where my samskara surface to disturb the mind. How do I manage this bar the mantra, devotion and minimizing exposure to others? Okay. I mean, uh, there are many ways. Mantra is one way, devotion is another way, minimum exposition, vairagya is another way. So here, when you say mantra and devotion, they come under abhyasa. And minimizing exposure to others is vairagya. So non-attachment and abhyasa and vairagya, they are universal methods. Whether you follow Christianity, Gita, yoga or anything, everybody will focus on these two things. Abhyasa means repetition for thinking about God or the supreme reality or the changeless reality. And Vairagya means giving up the changeful things of the world. So these are the two methods, whatever name you may give. All the samskaras are formed because a person lacks abhyasa or vairagya. If he doesn't have abhyasa, he doesn't do the mantra, doesn't do devotion, or he doesn't have knowledge, he doesn't bother, he just acts according to the needs of the hour, and the needs of the circumstances force him to act. So that is not enough. Even exposure to others, vairagya alone will not do, though it will help. It will not add new samskaras. So when you are going through periods of time where the samskaras surface, because they have not been destroyed. So to destroy it, there are only two ways, abhyasa and vairagya. That's why it is difficult to manage without these two things. Either you use mantra, devotion, jnana, your spiritual pursuits, which is known as abhyasa, practice. Abhyasa means practice, repeated practice, repeatedly holding on to the eternal. That is one way, but that is only 50% of the job. The other, as you said, is minimizing the exposure. So both have to be done whenever possible. Whenever there is no chance of reducing the exposure to others, then you practice abhyasa. When you can't do abhyasa, at least do vairagya. At least don't sit quietly. Latu Maharaj used to say, I have told this many times. If you don't have any job to do, just go to a corner and sit quietly, or even doze off. Just sit quietly, but don't involve and add more karma. So, minimizing exposure to others can be a sadhana also, if you take it in a positive way. One should not do out of disgust or anything. There are people who avoid others for other negative reasons. That is different. That will not help. If it is a positive, for example, people say, what shall I do in this solitude? It's a forced solitude because of isolation and all those things. So at that time, we don't understand the importance of minimizing the exposure to others. So that is gives you a chance to practice vairagya. The external circumstances are conducive, so why don't you use it? But when in other times, when you are forced to do work, when you cannot minimize your exposure to others, use abhyasa, keep an undercurrent of japa and devotion. But there are no substitutes for this. Whether you call it mantra, whether you call it prayer, or whether you call it meditation, they're all abhyasa. So we have to do abhyasa or vairagya. So both are there, and the samskaras, the more you do this, either abhyasa, vairagya, and both, the more you do, you'll find the samskaras coming to the surface to disturb the mind will become less and less. That is the sign which shows that we are progressing in your sadhana. So I shall take your leave. I've taken already 10-15 minutes more. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.